Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar celebrating Nova Scotia's Black economy. I'm super excited to be here with you all today, this evening. And I'm just going to give a few seconds, a few moments for folks to trickle in, and we'll get started right away. We have a stellar panel for you all today, so I can't wait to dive into the conversation and listen to these entrepreneurs that are really driving diversity within our business community and the broader community in Halifax. So be sure to grab a notepad, grab some water, coffee if you need it, whatever you need, and take a few seconds to get ready and get comfortable to listen, learn, and contribute. So I'll introduce myself for those who may not have no idea who I am. My name is Josh Creighton. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist here with the Halifax Chamber of Commerce and your host today. As mentioned previously, I'm super excited both as an entrepreneur myself, but also just as a concerned and socially conscious consumer here. I can't wait to learn from these diverse business owners and learn how I can contribute and learn how I can add some of the insights that they've experienced to my own personal venture. So I hope folks will be able to do the same as well. That's the hope for today's conversation. I'd like to start by acknowledging that I am speaking from Halifax, Chibuktuk, in Mi'kma'ki, the ancestral and traditional land of the Mi'kmaq people. I acknowledge the peace and friendship treaties, and I recognize that we are all treaty people. I would also like to take the time to recognize another distinct population here in Nova Scotia, and that's the African Nova Scotian community. And the community in which today's webinar is focused around. And I'm even more excited to be here on African Heritage Month to have this conversation and to reignite the fuel and the fire and everyone's passion for supporting not only all diverse communities, but specifically African Nova Scotian community. I'll also use this time to just remind everyone that the goal of today's webinar is to really walk away with something new, whether it's a new thought, a new perspective, a new idea, or a new connection. So be sure to network in the chat, put your questions in the Q&A box. We will have a period for questions towards the end, so we'll be sure all questions get answered. And yeah, put whatever statements or insights that you pick up throughout the webinar in the chat box. Connect with folks, and like I said, the goal should be to walk away with something new. So without further ado, I will get started and introduce our panelists, our group of stellar panelists and business owners here. First up, we have Ryan Williams. Ryan Williams, a former NCAA baseball player turned photographer and entrepreneur. After he finished playing baseball, Ryan worked in corporate sales for almost 10 years, where he picked up photography as a side hustle. After leaving his full-time sales career to pursue his passion of photography, he soon started Unbound Media Inc., a creative agency that provides professional photography and videography for brands and entrepreneurs. Next up on our panel, we have Fantanesh Attomsa, a registered massage therapist, doula, energy worker, teacher, and mom of 3. Also the owner of Blue Nile Massage and Wellness, a holistic health service that focuses on empowering individuals to take control of their health through practice and education. Next on our panel, we have Corvell Beals. Corvell is a serial entrepreneur who specializes in innovative, solution-based ventures that serve a diverse demographic of clientele. He is a business leader in Nova Scotia who shows a passion and commitment for socioeconomic development of our province, particularly with residents of his hometown, North Preston. Corvell is the owner of R&B Kitchen, Smooth Meal Prep, the Peace Tournament, and a plethora of other ventures across industries. And last but certainly not least, we have Tiffani Young. Tiffani is the owner of Natural Butter Bar, a company that offers all natural products that help different types of skin and hair look their best. Natural Butter Bar currently offers close to 40 natural butters. Tiffani started Natural Butter Bar in December 2020, and she has sold over 3,000 products across Canada and into the United States. she decided to improve the accessibility of her business by offering Braille labels upon request and improving their website to accommodate the visually impaired. And that is the stellar group of entrepreneurs we have today. So without further ado, I'd like to say welcome to our panelists and thank you for being here today. I'll now give each of the panelists the time to speak more to their journeys and their experiences and share a little bit about what brought them here today and hopes that you all learned something. And so we can start off with Ryan. Ryan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey thus far?
Hi, everyone. As Josh mentioned, my name is Ryan Williams, the founder of Unbound Media. How Unbound Media came about was I have 10 years of corporate sales experience, as Josh alluded to in the bio behind me. And one day I just picked up a camera back in maybe like 2012 or 2013. And I just started taking pictures. And I said, I kept like, this is right around where Instagram came out. And so I would go on Instagram and I would see these really cool pictures and I'd be like, I want my pictures to look like that. So off I would go to Best Buy or I think it might have even been Future Shop at the time. And I would ask them, I would show them my cell phone and I'd be like, hey, how do I take pictures that look like this? And they would be like, oh, you just need this lens over here. If anybody's into photography, it was the Nifty 50. So I grabbed that lens and then like progressively over time, I just started getting better and better at taking photos to the point where it became not so much of a hobby, but really a passion. And being in sales, everything was sort of a business to me. So it sort of became a side hustle. And then as it started to grow and take off, you know, I had to make that choice whether or not I was going to continue on with my corporate life or if I wanted to pursue my passions in entrepreneurship. And the passions in entrepreneurship won. So I picked up a camera, decided to start it as a side hustle, and then went full bore into entrepreneurship back into 2019. So I was doing freelance photography for, let's say, 4 or 5 years. And then 2019 was my first year without my corporate career behind me. And I went full on into the entrepreneurship business. Shortly after that, I picked up video production and then social media management. And then all of a sudden I was sending out invoices that said Ryan Williams Photography and Videography and Ryan Williams Photography and Social Media Management. And it just didn't make any sense anymore. So I fulfilled my dreams of always having like a marketing agency and created Unbound Media, where we do professional branding and content for brands and entrepreneurs.
Amazing. Very, very, very cool, Ryan. I could hear the passion come from your voice and very exciting. And now we'll move to Fantanesh. Please tell us about your journey and how you've gotten here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So like Josh said, I am the owner of Nile Massage and Wellness. So I'm also a registered massage therapist and a doula. So my passion really has to do with holistic health and holistic healing and wellness. I graduated from my program in 2018 and I was somewhat treating in school, just making a couple of extra dollars from friends and family here and there. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't a big thing. And then when I got into the workforce, I started noticing this pattern of predominantly white spaces or non-Black spaces. And this was reflected through the practitioners and through the staff and through owners. And that really translated into the clientele. So a lot of the clientele that I was treating were non-Black and mostly white. And I noticed that there was a huge gap. I was like, why aren't more of our people taking advantage of the health and wellness benefits of massage therapy? Why are they not being educated on their health benefits and knowing that this is available? All these holistic options are available. We don't have to directly go to family practice, although there is a time and a place for that. There's a time and a place for surgery, but there's a lot of preventative things that we can do. And our community was being left out of those spaces and left out of those conversations. So that really motivated me to open up my own practice. because really it's important for the clients to feel trust with their practitioners. And if they're not being represented by the people who are touching their bodies and in these vulnerable spaces with them, then they're just not going to go. They're just not going to take care of themselves in this way. So it was really important for me to do that. And I'm happy to say that most of my clientele is either Black or Indigenous or from other non-white communities, which that was my main goal from the beginning. I have a lot of white clients too, and my goal is really to create a healing and inclusive environment. So I want everyone to be able to kind of come in and be represented, and just know that, you know, we stand up for you, whatever that looks like.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Corvell, you're up next. Tell us about your journey thus far.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you kind of tried to make me sound real cool, and appreciate those kind words. But yeah, you know, for me, I love business. I love entrepreneurship, as Ryan was saying. I love just creating things. You know, growing up in North Preston, we created a lot. Like, you know, our forefathers and everybody, you know, they created the community. Like, they took something that was nothing and made it into something. And so, you know, being a part of that spirit, just always wanting to create things, whether it be events, for stuff for us to do, parties back in the day, just always looking to kind of make something happen. And so, you know, as I got a little bit older, you know, I worked a few different jobs. I was selling insurance at one point. You know, I worked with my uncle in construction, and just not really feeling the whole vibes of having a boss and somebody always telling me what to do, controlling my time. And I knew that there was always a spirit in me that I wanted to be my own boss. And so, you know, when certain opportunities weren't there, I just had to kind of go out there and create them for myself. And so, you know, I started in construction, but I really hated that, the long hours and the workload. And then somehow I landed in food, which is no better. But you know what? I think one of the things that I'll say, you know, to kind of, is that I just love entrepreneurship, man. I love, you know, creating businesses. I just talked about the peace tournament again, just looking at something that, you know, growing up with the Black tournament being a big part of my life, and just always looking forward to it. And when it didn't exist no more, like just having that inside fire that I just wanted to, you know, I want to participate in these things. So for me, I just got to look for things that I want to participate in, and if they don't exist, then I try to create them here. So Smooth Meal Prep, R&B Kitchen are just pretty much businesses that started me and my family from nothing, right? We just can't even really call it an idea. It just kind of fell into our lap, in a sense. You know, my brother was looking for meal prep here, and my mom was looking for a second job, and then boom. So we made that happen. But overall, yeah, I think that's really my introduction journey, is just knack and love of business and entrepreneurship and creating.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Tiffani, please tell us about Natural Butter Bar and the journey that you've come on to discover the opportunity that lies there.
Yes, thank you. So maybe unlike some of the other panelists, I did not kind of grow up with that entrepreneurial spirit. I never thought that I would be a business owner. My background's actually psychology and HR. However, when I decided that I didn't want to, you know, relax my hair, chemically process my hair anymore, I found it very challenging living in the Maritimes, trying to find products, you know, that I could use to care for Black hair specifically. And, you know, a lot of what's out there in the market is not made with our hair in mind. So as I was doing research of, you know, what products should I use, I couldn't find them here on the shelves. So a lot of ordering online or stocking up your suitcase when you travel. And so I kind of got frustrated with that process and decided, okay, maybe I'll try, you know, making my own. I spent a lot of time, you know, on YouTube and watching tutorials and things. And so I knew it was something that was possible. However, again, sourcing all natural ingredients here in the Maritimes can be challenging. And then when you do find what you're looking for, it can be very expensive as well. But, you know, I made do with what I could. I was a student at the time, and so, you know, had a tight budget. but got by, and really started getting a lot of people stopping me and asking me like, oh, what are you using? What have you been doing to grow your hair, and that type of thing. And it was actually my husband who kind of now dropped that idea of, I think, there's a business opportunity here. There's clearly a gap, and you clearly have, gained knowledge and information that others are seeking as well. So we basically had a brainstorming session, and I came up with the idea for we call it Butter Bar for short. And so really delved into doing a lot of research. And as I was researching, realized a lot of these natural ingredients that I wanted to infuse into, the hair care industry are also really great and beneficial for skin as well. So I decided to make the company kind of like a full one-stop shop for hair to toe needs. And that's really how it came about. And something that's really important to us at Butter Bar is to make sure that, we are representing our diverse community. We try and reflect that in our brand. And then we also want to be as accessible as possible. So Josh, I know you touched on the fact that we do offer Braille labels. We're also currently working on a project to create universal symbols, because even within the visually impaired community, only 10% of that community actually use Braille. So there's still a lot of people being left out of the conversation, left out of, opportunities. And so, we're creating these raised symbols that we're hoping will, be used across the cosmetics industry, not just with Butter Bar, and, really looking to change the game that way. Thank you.
Wow, thank you for that, Tiffany. Very, 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 very cool and very insightful. I think it's something that a lot of small business owners struggle with is, or startups in general. You're so busy focusing on increasing your bottom line and making money that sometimes you can lack focus on some of the other key social areas that your business should be addressing. And so I think you inspire myself and many other entrepreneurs to be more socially conscious. So I appreciate your efforts, and thank you for sharing that. So I have a bunch of questions for you folks, some a lot more philosophical than others. I will leave those towards the end and start off easy. I guess the first question I have is what were the key determinants that led you to decide to start a business in your specific industry? Was other than what were the main gaps that you maybe saw potential to fill with your business venture?
Is it just anyone can answer? I'll go first, I guess. So specifically in the food industry, smooth meal prep was kind of how we got our foot in the door. And like I said, my brother Nile, he was playing Division I basketball down in the States. He came back here to attend St. Mary's University in his final few years. And he was looking to get in shape for the season. He had been doing meal prep out there, and he came here looking for it. And there just weren't a lot of options. And so once he, kind of did a little quick dive around to look and see what was available, and really wasn't anything. And as I mentioned earlier, my mom, she was looking for a second job at the time. So, we're like, perfect marriage. She had been cooking for him. And so we're like, you could probably do this, a little side hustle. And she wanted like 10 customers. And we were like, well, if you want 10 consistent customers, you're probably going to have to service 100 over the next year or whatever. And we just started blasting it out. And the response is crazy. So I guess what happened for us was, after maybe like 2 months of kind of like friends and family, we've seen that, we might have something here. And we just kind of doubled down, put a lot more resources and time and energy into it. We did a deep dive into the market to kind of see like what is in the market, what exists, what competitors really exist. And we chose our lane around fitness food, and then it just kind of took off. R&B Kitchen kind of was a spinoff of that. Complete opposite businesses when you look at food. Smooth Meal Prep is like health food, conscious focused food, and R&B Kitchen is soul, feed your soul food. But how that happened was we were cooking out of a community center where it's kind of hard getting in and out. And once we're like, we need to get our own space, started our own kitchen, and we were cooking on Sundays and Wednesdays. And we're like, you know what, we need to add some other another tenant. And so we just kind of became our own tenant. And R&B Kitchen story is a little bit more, I guess, personal for us. We're a family that loves music, a community that loves music. And so Black people love food, and there really wasn't any places out here that we could call our own. Like when people come here, like, where do you go to kind of be a part of the Nova Scotia culture, food aspect? So that's what really led us in that industry. And I want to be in businesses where there's money and every day everybody eats. So today we might be serving soul food and health food. Maybe next 5 years we might be coming with a vegan line. I don't know. So as long as we have customers there, I think you'll probably always find us somewhere in and around the area. So that's been kind of the biggest motivation for us.
Very cool. I have a few follow-up questions or thoughts that came when you were sharing that. But Ryan, I see your hand is raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, for me, it was just, I've always been a people person. Everything that I've always done in my life, everybody's always, complimented me on the charisma and the full engagement in making people feel good and smile and laugh. And getting into sales right out of college was probably the best thing that it could have ever happened to me, because I was able to sort of hone my skills and as it related to communicating with people. But I just found like I never really cared about the things that I was selling until I found, media, and until I found photography and videography. And it was a situation where it was like, I was in office products. I sold office products for a few years. And then I was in dental sales for 6.5 years. And I just didn't really care about floss that much. I mean, I know we all need it and I know we all need to floss, but I just didn't really care about it that much. So when I started really honing in my passion for photography, my late father always said, be your own boss. And in the Black Nova Scotian community, for me in particular, I didn't have a whole lot of mentors to go to as it related to entrepreneurs, where I sort of grew up, and so it was a bit foreign to me. But having that sales experience behind me really gave me the confidence to be able to sell. I just felt like I could sell anything. And so with being able to have that confidence, it's like, why not sell something that I'm passionate about? And so really photography, videography, all that kind of stuff for me is I always actually say that I'm a business person first and a creative second. And this current avenue is just really the vessel for me to be able to be my best self and really help other people feel like their best selves as well.
Very cool. I think a lot of the world's most successful entrepreneurs start off in some kind of sales role. So that's very relevant and very, I guess, relating to this topic, of course. So thank you for sharing that. It's important. Fantanesh, please go next.
Yeah, I think I admire people who do sales, because that was something that I really had to learn how to do, and especially in the wellness industry, when you're like a caring person or an intuitive person, and you really believe that all people should have access to this, whether or not they have money for this or not. Sales was something that I really had to learn, especially if I wanted to scale and grow the business. So one of the motivating factors for me was, like I touched on earlier, just having representation in terms of practitioners. That way we can reach a wider group of people, a wider demographic. More people can come in and really enjoy the benefits of holistic health. And really, holistic health is not anything different than what we've been practicing within our families, within our culture, within our history. We all have, we have ancestors, we have guides, we have spiritual leaders in our community. We have, mind, body, spirit connection and everything that we do. It's not just, we go in and we just, take a pill and we do this and it's over with. our community, our culture as Black people, I feel like we have such a holistic approach to it. So I'm not teaching anything new in what I do. I'm just kind of bringing us back to our roots is kind of what I look at it as. And of course, as a mom with young kids, I wanted a little bit more independence, and having my own business definitely allows me to do that. And then obviously the financial part of it was great. You know, this is a pretty lucrative industry. And I kind of just fell into it. I never grew up thinking like, hey, I want to be a registered massage therapist. I kind of just fell into it. This was kind of my in-between stage, but once I kind of got into it and saw that it could be profitable, and the passion really behind it was more important to me than the profit. That really is kind of keeping me in here for the long run. And the goal is eventually to have like a clinic space where it's kind of like a one-stop shop where people can come and get their acupuncture and their chiro and different things along with the massage therapy.
Very cool and fantastic. I think I very much resonate with what you said. You know, most of my background comes from the nonprofit sector, so you know, selling was very foreign to me, and so it's something that I'm always looking to educate myself more and more about. I mean, because it's crucial, right? As a business owner. My next question is it pertains to everyone on the call, but you know, I think most specifically to these panelists, because I think you know, each one of you is very much, whilst running a startup or multiple startups, none of you lack the social contribution in which your business is provides to the broader community here in Halifax. And so you know, whether it's Ryan, you know, prioritizing Black stories when he's covering you know, businesses or whatever it may be, or whether it's R&B Kitchen or Smooth Meal Prep serving the need of you know, proximity to healthy and soul food, proximity to healthy food and culturally you know, representative food, or whether Tiffani, you're you know, including Braille on your packaging, or Fantanesh, whether you're, you know, educating a community that is I'll say has a lack of education on health and wellness, an education that has been deprived historically from Black folks. And so, you know, I think I'm just, what intrigues me the most about all of you is that you know, you're creating these successful business ventures, but you're also contributing socially to your communities. And you know, I think that's usually the number one excuse, you know, when businesses, you know, aren't necessarily doing what they should be doing when in relation to equity, diversity, and inclusion, or honestly just supporting the broader community here in Halifax. And so I think it's super important for you folks to share that and to speak more about that. So I guess what the question is, and I know the answer. I know it's very much ingrained in most of you through your experience. So my question is, how can a white business owner, or a business owner who doesn't have the same lived experience as you folks, really adopt that passion, or what's the word I'm looking for? Adopt the imperativeness of contributing socially? How can other business owners really look to you folks as examples and learn these things? Anyone, whoever wants to jump in on that one.
I'll definitely
Go
ahead.
Sure. Thanks, Fantanesh. I would say, I think it really, and I believe the other panelists would agree, it's thinking outside of yourself as well. I think one thing I know for myself, you know, when you do come from a community or from a culture that sometimes is othered, or is an afterthought, or just not thought of at all, it does create an opportunity to, you know, think of things in a different way, because you are looking at things from that lens. However, if you are, you know, on the other side where you haven't had to deal with some of those struggles, or ever been the minority in a situation, it's really, you know, removing yourself from the situation and trying and look at things through the lens of others. I yes, I wear glasses. However, I'm not, fully visually impaired, but that didn't, prevent me from realizing that, hey, my business is creating barriers for other people in ways that I have never experienced myself. That doesn't mean that, I shouldn't care about that, or that I can't do something to make somebody else's journey better or easier. It's just taking that time to listen and to put yourself in somebody else's shoes. I don't expect to, create these raised symbols by doing it all by myself. I'm reaching out and interacting and getting feedback from first voice within the community that I'm trying to, create these symbols for. One thing with creating Butter Bar was I wanted that representation. I used to be a youth outreach worker and run an after school program. And one thing that, really helped me to pursue this dream of having this business is when I would have little Black girls come up to me and be like, oh my gosh, like, I love your hair. I'm going to wear my hair like yours tomorrow. Creating that space, for that to happen is, a way that other, non-Black businesses or other, businesses who don't deal with the same issues can do. So really just taking that time to stop, listen, and put yourself in somebody else's shoes when you're making decisions for your own business.
For sure. Yes, I thank you for that insight, Tiffany. Ryan, I don't know if you had your hand up first or perfect. Go ahead.
Specifically for the business owners, I want you to, after this call, I want you guys to take a look at your social media feeds, specifically maybe even Instagram, because it's all laid out there for you in a grid, and look and see how many non-white folk are in your feed, right? So we're in a very unique position as being a part of creating the media that I tell my clients anytime, or anybody that inquires with me, that you're working with a Black-owned business. So what that means is you have built-in conscious inclusion and diversity when you work with Unbound Media, because I am a Black-owned business. We are a Black-owned business. So when people need help finding talent, it's not lost on us that we need to make sure that people's feeds and social media and digital marketing is diverse and inclusive, because representation matters. There are so many businesses, specifically in Nova Scotia, that need to do a better job, frankly, with their diversity in their content. And I don't say that to shame anybody, but just to bring awareness to that situation, right? So everybody needs to have a conscious thought of diversity when creating their marketing content, because there's more people in this province than ever before, which means there's more diversity than ever before.
Well, thank you for that tangible insight, Ryan. Thank you very much. I'm sure the folks appreciate it. Fantanesh, we'll go with you, and Tiffany, I see your hand up again. Oh, okay.
Hi. Hey. Yeah. Ryan and Tiffany, both of you guys just lit me up, because Ryan, I totally agree. I follow a lot of local businesses, and I've actually reached out to a couple of them personally, and been like, where is the diversity on your page? If you're specifically targeting just one group of people, then you're doing a great job. But if you want to diversify your clientele and your customers and make it more welcoming for the rest of us to be in your spaces, then you have to, be intentional about that. And I'll speak from experience, being a part of a predominantly white college, and then also predominantly white workspaces after graduating. And it was so disappointing is not even the strong enough word. The fact that nobody stood up and celebrated Black History Month, or talked about missing and murdered Indigenous women, or, celebrated the LGBTQ2IA community. It's like, how can you, even if you just have one Black person there, or one person of color, or one person from another community, we're in these spaces more than we're even at home. Like, we're in work a lot, how many hours a day? We're in school how many hours a day? To be so blatantly dismissive and to be so blatantly, just to be so silent. Like silence is so outdated now. Like even a newsletter, even some sort of acknowledgement, whether you have one or none, even if you don't have any, be aware of what the world is talking about, be aware of what's actually happening out here, and show that you show support, whether or not you are a part of that community or not. My college experience was 2 years. It would have been so nice to have either, I was really the only Black person in the school. There was one other, and there was hardly any in the graduate photos. And then even in my workspaces, I was the only I was the only Black person in these spaces. And just even to have some sort of acknowledgement, like send out a letter, a newsletter, say that you stand with like Black Lives Matter, or say that you support Black people in the communities and you want to learn more and you're open to learning more. Those little gestures, they mean the world in terms of trying to build some sort of community and team, because honestly, I never felt welcome in those spaces. And if you're trying to be intentional about making sure that your staff feel welcomed and your staff feel heard and seen in these spaces, then you have to be more intentional in your approach.
Very much so. Very, very, very much so. I have a follow-up question. We talk about how important representation is, right? And so, when saying that, I think each of us on this call has faced the time, and I think a main contributor to our success has been being the only person in a given industry, in a given room, in a given class. So how, my question would be, what would you tell to young Black folks to get past this barrier, right? How can young Black people really learn from you folks and navigate this Shark Tank of a world?
I think when you look at industries and sectors and classrooms or any space where there's like no Black people and it's somewhere where I want to be, I think, I've always taken the approach that like, well, if I want to be there, let me be there. And even though it's uncomfortable, and I'm speaking to like the young Black people, if it's uncomfortable, I think someone has to first step inside that room. And, you got to kill it in that room. And I think once you get there, you have to believe that you belong there and then bring some people with you. And I think that's kind of always been my approach, is like, wherever I want to be, I'm going to go. And when I get there, I always be mindful that there's somebody else that probably want to be here too. So I'm always reaching back and opening my hand to bring somebody else along the way. Fantanesh, I want to just say, the quote that you made, silence is so outdated. I think that that's one of the biggest things too, is that like, we have to be more vocal about these things. We have to become more comfortable to be able to speak these words so that, everybody can understand that, I'm Black every day of the week, 365 days a year. For the rest of my life, I'm gonna be Black. And so, I have to carry this with me, and I carry it proudly. And I think the thing is, the thing that we experience as Black entrepreneurs, Black business owners, are the same things we see, like, in the social world, the things that are happening in the world. We got to deal with them outside of our business. And so, being Black isn't just a token for business. Being Black is something that I am every day. And I think, to the young Black youth and to the people that want to be in spaces, man, just enter them. And however uncomfortable, just enter them. And sometimes too, a lot of times more so, they're more afraid and uncomfortable with our presence than we are being in that space. So, it always starts with the first step. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Corvell. It's a thought I think about a lot, right? And it's something I always I'm going back and forth with various mentors in my life and friends, is just the experience of living, like you alluded to, the experience of living while Black, or the experience of living while in the midst of poverty, or whatever the handicap may be. and so it's to get past, the barriers, you almost have to ignore them, right? Or not ignore them, or act as if they don't affect you. And so I guess, Fantanesh, how would how do you tackle that? How do you kind of navigate yourself through life with knowing that? And how does your fitness journey and health and wellness impact these feelings, right? Because I'm sure how important physical health is in relation to our emotional and mental health. And so I guess, can you speak to some of the things Black entrepreneurs, Black people in general, can do to protect their mental and emotional health when when facing the everyday struggles in which we face?
Yeah, absolutely. Just like Corbell said, I'm so proud to be Black, so proud to be a Black woman. The more that I can be in these spaces and really shake things up by just being naturally who I am, the more confident I feel. Like, I wish I had this confidence when I was in those spaces. You don't sometimes realize how difficult it is until you get out and you're like, wow, that was actually a little bit traumatic to have nobody around that looked like me and no type of support from the leadership or anything like that. And that really just kind of lit a fire inside of me to be super intentional about getting into these spaces and be super intentional with the team that I hire around me. I have a Black accountant, Black lawyer, Black everything as much as I can. I try to buy Black. And our community here in Halifax, particularly, our Black business community is booming so much. Like, we have someone in every single sector, in every single industry. So I get over it by really just showing up. And it's not easy. Of course, a lot of days, especially if you're in an industry that a lot of times doesn't look like you. But I am so intentional about the people that I keep around me, so that when I look around, I do see myself in the professionals, in like the staff and my supports and my mentors. Everyone around me has to look like me, so that if I'm struggling, if I'm having a bad day, they can definitely lift me up and push me through. And another thing that I'm super intentional about is my feed. I spend a lot of time on Instagram. I spend a lot of time on Facebook. And I did a little video about this, and I didn't post it yet, but I'm going to post it. But the feed is literally what you're consuming, what you're ingesting. And if you're not consuming things that are uplifting and empowering, then it's really going to take a huge hit onto your mental health. My feed, a lot of it is Black successful professionals, people who look like me, kids that look like me, successful people that are representative of what I look like. And I have to be super intentional about that. Even back when, George Floyd's murder was videotaped, I chose not to watch it, because I find sometimes the media is so intentional about beating us down mentally, so that I don't watch a lot of police brutality videos. I know what's going on. I'm a Black person living this real experience. I have to be intentional about what I'm feeding myself. Otherwise, the media is intentional. I'm not saying media is bad, because I see Ryan out here hustling and doing his thing. But for the if we're watching news outlets and things like that, like, it's a lot of it is really depressing, and it's really oppressing to the Black community and Black mental health. So if I can say anything, definitely be mindful of what you're consuming, and be mindful about the people that you're around, and buy Black as much as you can.
I love that. And I don't know if media has their own role to play in that, but I think for those who haven't, you should very much watch The Social Dilemma on Netflix, because it talks about some of these algorithms in which exist in the apps and all the apps in our phone in which we use, and you have no control over what you see. And these algorithms are so smart that they'll show whatever you're liking, whatever you're sharing, whatever you're posting. So we need to be cognizant of that. And so I very much appreciate that, because especially during the George Floyd era, that was a huge must that protected my mental health, is just being off social media. Like you said, as Black people, we see it in our communities, we experience it, and so to see it over and over and over is very harmful sometimes. So I thank you so much for adding that. What is the biggest challenge? And I know there's so many, and there's a lot, but just to shed I always say that, you know, the biggest gap is knowledge of each other's experience. And so I'm always, you know, looking to share kind of snippets or whatever can be shared of different, you know, experiences of different communities. And so, you know, what is the biggest challenge as you face as a Black entrepreneur?
I can jump on since nobody's jumping for this one. I have two. One's a little bit more personal, and then the other is a bit more, you know, based on structures. Self-doubt was definitely one of my biggest challenges, and I think specifically as a Black entrepreneur, similar to what Ryan had said earlier, in communities that I grew up in, there weren't many Black entrepreneurs. I grew up in communities where I was usually the only Black person in the school or in my class. And so, you know, it was very hard to kind of see myself in certain jobs or certain industries. And so as much as sometimes you don't realize how much that affects you, because, you know, you'd say, oh, I had a great childhood, but there's still things that you've gone through that until you're older and now trying to do certain things, those, you know, emotions and thoughts present themselves. So I definitely dealt and battled with a lot of self-doubt of, you know, am I good enough? Like, you know, what if I'm not accepted? What are people going to think? And within the, you know, cosmetics industry, hair care and all of that, there's not a lot of, you know, Black owned businesses. There's lots of people who, you know, sell Black hair products, but, you know, there wasn't many, you know, now it's becoming a little bit more, but you know, I didn't look around and see people who looked like me owning and selling to, you know, people that look like me. So that was a huge challenge. And then the one that's a bit more structured, I would say, is access to resources. You know, again, when you don't see a lot of people that you can reach out to that, you know, you may feel comfortable kind of going to and saying, hey, this is what I'm struggling with, or where can I, you know, how can I tap into these things? When you don't have those connections, it can be very difficult, you know, to get things started and get things off the ground. You know, I have not taken out any loans or anything like that to start the business. I thankfully had gotten myself to a position where I could, you know, start things myself, and whatever I've made, I've just reinvested over the last year into the business. But that's not everybody's situation. And so, you know, even now I'm still learning of different grants and different avenues of where you can access financial support, you know, marketing support and things like that. And so I think just that lack of access to resources, that lack of connection that you know, other communities sometimes have or have that advantage of, it has been a huge has been one of the main barriers for me.
Thank you for sharing that, Tiffani. Corval, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that question, I hear it so often, and depending on what day of the week it is, my answer could probably drastically change a lot. But for the sake of the conversation, I'll just say, you know, structural, I guess, you know, for us anyway, right now is just having that structure, right? So like really being able to really have a true business structure that is not, I guess, dependent on yourself always, right? Like when you look at being an entrepreneur, a lot of the times, you know, you hear things like, you know, you want to get things done right, you got to do it yourself and all these things. And so just getting to that place where how do I really want to grow my business to that next level, and the know-how too, because a lot of times we don't have a lot of examples. I had, you know, some business people in the community, mainly though, like in one industry, you know, for me specifically, it was construction. And so I never really seen a behemoth construction business. So I never really had anybody to go to like, how do I grow my business and scale my business to this next level, like to go across the Maritimes, to go across Canada. And so a lot of times we hit this cap. So I think, you know, depending on the day of the week, today is Wednesday, the biggest challenge is like trying to break through that cap, and really believing that you can, and not having the self-doubt and all of those things. I think that's really what it is right now. And just knowing, you know, I talked to Ross Simmons, and he's been helping me a lot to really understand that we are capable. of being a global business. If it means just in Canada, but nonetheless, like we are capable. So yeah, my biggest challenge is, structure and a grow. Yeah.
Thank you for adding that, Corvell. And it makes me think of, all the mentors I have, because, so often, so many entrepreneurs in general don't have a formal business training, a formal business background. So in my experience, there was so much I had to learn, right? And so many of my mentors, and like we've alluded to before, were not, and like you just mentioned, didn't look like me. So, I just want to remind folks that, if you're an ally, if you're a white person, you are most likely serving as a mentor for a young Black person, because they have no one else in that industry to look to. So the onus is on you to educate yourself as much as possible to make that relationship, socially responsible of my experience, right? And so, how you lead, how you talk to me, how you address me, all these things are going to play. And so I think it's important that you say that. And I think it's important that I just reiterate to folks that the educational journey is always, it's never ending. And, most likely you're already serving as a mentor now to someone, even if you don't know it, I'm most definitely telling you do. So it's important to keep that education and that perspective of never-ending curiosity going. I have a question for all of you, I guess, and it's, what are some of the supports that you may have used or accessed along the way to help your business grow or scale, or to help educate yourself? What are some of those resources, and where can folks go to find them and connect with them?
I can jump in. I'll start off by saying it's really hard to find mentors that look like us, and especially in my industry, it was really hard here locally. And when that was the case, I started looking outside of Nova Scotia. I started, listening to podcasts, doing a lot of personal research online, and I think we do have some organizations here locally that do provide support in terms of like business education, taking, some business foundations training and things like that, which are great. I find sometimes the wraparound is a little bit challenging. So we understand the, the business foundations, what about the financials, what about the legal, what about, everything else. And the best way I find is obviously through mentorship. I think you guys all know I'm pretty vocal about my connection with Black Women in Excellence, and they do provide mentorship programs, and Tia has now become a mentor to me in terms of now wanting to expand and scale my business. So that, mentorship is definitely the way to go if you can. That was something that helped me. Listening to podcasts, Girl CEO, Ronnie Brown. She is like a hard hitter. She gives a lot of straight facts for free. If you can go on Spotify or iTunes, wherever you listen to your podcast, and start downloading her stuff, I can't even believe it's free. It's from her first episode to her very recent one. Everything from, developing, like for entrepreneurs, developing real estate portfolio. How do you organize your finances? How do you develop a business structure? What about branding? All these things that you don't think about. And a lot of times you have to pay for this information. And she does have a paid program that obviously, probably go in a lot more in depth. But if you want kind of a good outline and overview of kind of what you're getting into, Ronnie Brown has been really good for me, Girl CEO.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Ryan, please go next. I am cognizant of time, so after Ryan's response, we'll go into the Q&A chat questions.
Yeah, so I'll leave it with this. Like, the biggest supports that I've seen are each other. I've met more Black entrepreneurs in the last year than I had in the last 33 years of my life. And I feel like we are each other's resources. And it's really cool, but really sad in the same sense. But like, I'm a really positive person, so I'm gonna keep it cool. Like, it's nice to be able to look left and right and see Black people being entrepreneurs and starting businesses and just like I feel like, and I could be wrong, but I feel like we're creating a new wave. And then that kind of kicks back to the youth. I feel like the youth are going to have more of a tangible, like something to sink their teeth into. You got Corvell, and you got all these kinds of people that are really just like, that are around our age, the millennials. We've learned well from our baby boomer parents. Thank you so much. But like we are, I think we're out here right now, and I think we're supporting one another. In terms of financial support, I've never found it easy to find anything. I looked here and there when I was hiring a few employees. I've never really qualified. I never felt like I qualified for anything. Like, I've never really had support in that way. But the support that I get from talking to my brothers and sisters out on the street that are having and supporting and starting and growing businesses, that's been invaluable.
Amazing. Thank you for that, Ryan. So we will go to the Q&A chat now. So folks, if you have any last minute dire questions, please throw them in now. The first one is similar to a question I had just asked, and it's, I'll just read it off here. Did any of you get any support from BBI or any other networking, skills, or trading organizations here local to Halifax? And if not, I wonder if there's a support group of Black entrepreneurs. Does that exist? If not, should it?
I mean, I think that there's a real, I guess, gap in the way that Black entrepreneurs need to be supported. And it's not just financial. So with that being said, I think, the simplest answer is no. But then early on, and I think from specifically to BBI, but then as of recent, there's been different pockets of resources that exist that we've tapped into. And then, there's tons of, I guess, resources that exist. It's just hard to really know where they're at. And a lot of times too, there's always that one little thing that we just don't have, not qualified, get. And I think, yeah, that's the simplest answer, no. Simplest answer is no. Yeah.
Thank you, Corvell. Ryan, I see your hand is up. Or is
I
that
think I just didn't lower it from last time, but I will speak on it. I agree with Corvell. I feel like there's no real central resource, or I always find it's very, very hard to find any type of financial support. I feel like, the resources in terms of BBI and other organizations and that sort of thing, I just don't ever really feel like it's easily accessible. I don't really feel like there's anything that's very accessible, to be honest.
Fantanesh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just quickly gonna plug, of course, Black Women in Excellence, because they do provide that mentorship component. So if you are a Black woman in business that's looking to scale, grow, start wherever you are on your journey, definitely follow them on Instagram. There's a lot of free content on the page, and then her 16-week mentorship program is incredible. She's launched about 50 businesses in the last 15 months. I think 15 women have gone through the program, have started their entrepreneurial journey. I've mentored a few of them, and it's really so inspiring to see what's kind of coming out of there. So free and free.
Thank you for that, Fantanesh. Without further ado, I think that does wrap our time up. So I'll just first of all, I want to thank our panelists, Corvell, Fantanesh, Tiffani, and Ryan. Very, very, very amazing insights shared today. I know I myself have a page full of notes, so I'll be sure to refer back to those. And I'm very confident that they'll be useful, and so I very much appreciate it. Thanks all the participants today for coming. Give yourselves a pat on the back. It's important just to show up to this, for us to know that there's allies, looking to contribute and support this work. supporting Black entrepreneurs, it always feels good to know that you have a broad allyship here in our community. So thank you folks for coming on today and listening. I will reference a few business supports for any Black entrepreneurs that are on the call. The first resource I will mention is our panelists. And so I hope they don't get too mad at me, but if you have any inquiries or any questions, if you're a young Black entrepreneur, or maybe you're a white business owner that wants to educate themselves more, please don't hesitate to reach out to these folks. I'm sure they could help you out, or at least point you in the direction of someone who can. But the other resource I'll share is I'd encourage you all to look into NSBI. They have lots of supports for small business owners. I have to plug the chamber because the chamber also has a bunch of supports that in which we can help you with to grow and to scale, and as well as some of the federal COVID. I mean, we just got the restrictions today that we're done, but there are some federal supports out there as well. So we're done with restrictions, but I'm sure there's still some supports out there that delivered by our government. But the NSBI and of course the chamber are two supports that I will vouch for and extend to everyone on this call. I'll also say we are getting, with the news earlier this afternoon, we are getting back to live events. So Q2 and 3 are going to be event filled, lots of networking opportunities. So if you're not a member, please reach out to me because you should be. And there's lots of great opportunities on the horizon. So be sure to do your own research and connect with us or the folks on the call. And thank you everyone again for joining, and have a great rest of your evening and rest of the week.